Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today, we are going to be taking a look at The Killing Kind 2 by Bryan Smith. The book is 428 pages. This copy, at least, is 428 pages, broken up into 41 chapters, including an epilogue. It is a thick boy. As for your blurb, the gist of it is that a group of killers participate in a deadly game of kill or be killed, resulting in a whole shit ton of mayhem. That's pretty much it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my videos, I do a multitude of things. I do a content sample, which is essentially a trigger warning. I do a plot summary. I do general review stuff before and after a plot summary. And I'm going to share with you some scenes and excerpts today, I think. If not, I'm going to cut that out. So, yeah, with that all out of the way, let's jump right into a content sample. So, if you were to pick up a copy of The Killing Kind 2 and read it, you would find all of the following. You have your bog standard gore, torture, mutilation, and death. In this book, that includes genital mutilation. Not extremely drawn out or descriptive genital mutilation, but genital mutilation nonetheless. You also have sexual abuse in this book, including sexual assault and rape. Again, not extremely drawn out. One scene of rape that I remember, but it's a flashback description. It's still pretty visceral, but I'm just putting all that out there. You also have some child abuse in this book, which is just physical abuse and murder and death, so killing kids. You have some fecal stuff throughout the book, including coprophagic acts, and then you also have urine in the book, some urine stuff, including urophagic acts. Essentially, someone is made to eat a large plate of shit and urine. You also have general filth, including poor hygiene. You have intimate partner abuse, and you have addiction. Also, fetish spotlight. If you're into stump fucking, there's a pretty drawn out descriptive scene of stump fucking. Also, any hybristophiliacs in the audience, I would more so recommend the first book, but if you're into hot female killers, this is the book for you. I'm not going to judge you. Maybe seek some help, but just putting that out there. So yeah, that's your content sample for the day. What's next? So, general review time. Now, I very much enjoyed the first book. Okay, I very much enjoyed it. This one is very different tonally. It's very different tonally. It's very different in content. In genre, even. It's very, very, very different. First thing I noticed was that the dialogue in this book between the characters seems a little bit off. Janky, even. Now, mostly that's just in the beginning, whenever Julie, a character from the first book, is speaking. She, her dialogue, especially between her and Roxy, is very odd. Like, stylistically, it's very almost amateurish in the beginning of the book. It gets better as it goes on, and then it kind of gets back to that cheese that was in the beginning of the first book between the kids when they were speaking, like that 80s slasher flick cheese. But in the beginning, it feels very iffy, to say the least. It definitely took me out of the story a couple of times. So putting that out there. There are a few typos in this book. Notably, the author mixes up car brands at one point, which kind of confused me. The characters are driving one car, and then they switch over to a new car, and then he accidentally refers to the new car as the old car's brand. I mean, things like this happen. Again, putting it all out there. This book is fun. It is a very fun book. It is a lot more fantastical than the first one. Gone are the days of the gritty home invasion horror that was very localized and specific to a small group of people. Now we're dealing with a lot of mass murder and brutal torture, celebrity beheadings, weird hostile-style games rigged by billionaires. It's very crazy action movie-esque. It's zany. Zany is the best way to put it. It's very, very zany, okay? It's balls to the wall. In this book, Unlike the first one where there was more nuance, there are no good guys to root for in this book, okay? Everyone you follow is morally reprehensible at best, looking at Chuck. He is morally reprehensible at best. Everyone else is just pretty much plain evil, and even Chuck somewhat becomes just evil because of the situation that he's in. So there's not much nuance with, oh, maybe Rob's kind of a good guy, but also he's being forced into it. It's very much just everyone's evil. And I'll talk about it more in a second, but we do see Rob's full transformation into evil. So it's not like just randomly he becomes all evil. It sort of makes sense given the setting, but and the plot direction. But I will note that there are no good guys in this book, okay? It's kind of hard to compare to the first one in terms of how much I personally enjoyed it. I did really enjoy the first one, okay? Very, very, very much enjoyed that. This one I did also very much enjoy, just in a different way, just because of how different it is in content. Again, it's a lot more fun. It's not as disturbing and just dark and depressing. It's more like watching an action movie versus a gritty thriller, right? It's different, but I did enjoy it. Not as much, I would say, but I did enjoy it, okay? So don't take my criticisms as me saying I don't like the book. I did very much like the book. However, it does seem lower quality. That is, everything seems lower quality. There are typos. I didn't know any typos in the first one. It seems more rushed in certain aspects, especially the dialogue, the typos, that kind of thing. It is lower quality, I would say. Okay. So I was gushing grannies about the character development in the first book, right? That was absolutely incredible. That is some of the best character writing I have ever seen in a book, ever read in a book, okay? It was absolutely fucking brilliant. In this one, we are less focused on the characters, okay? And the killers are more toned down. Now, they're still absolutely fucking evil pieces of shit, right? But in the first one, they had so much depth. Julie was a spoiled little brat. Emily was also a spoiled little brat, but different. She was more cunning and then egotistical and completely full of herself to the point where she thought she could not be harmed. Roxy was just pure fucking balls to the wall evil. Used that phrase twice now. And Rob is, again, he was a nuanced character, right? For the most part. For the most part. And I would say there are two reasons that in that book they were more developed than in this one, and that is because, or they were more focused on, their character was more focused on, and their development was more focused on. A is because it was on a smaller scale, so we could be more focused on the killers in their day-to-day lives and the grandiose acts of violence they were committing. And then also, just in the second one, that you've already developed your characters mostly, so there's going to be less focus on them because you've already implanted them in the minds of your readers, assuming they don't start on the second book, which would be weird. But there is a lot less just character development or focus on the characters themselves. Again, more focus on the insane acts that these killers are committing. Again, this is like we're on an international scale now of weird billionaire hostile games that are being filmed and uploaded to like the dark web. Okay, like we're out of breaking into a house and torturing everyone. We're into mass shootings and killing cops in a GTA style first person video game kind of thing. Okay, it's much more insane. So that can be forgiven. That's not really a flaw, more so just a difference that I noted. We also don't really have much perspective, which also kind of leads into the character development thing. Like the reason we focus so heavily on the killer's characters, like how evil they were, how bratty, bitchy they were, is because we had perspectives like Rob and Chuck and the other kids. We have less of that. Like I've already said, everyone's a bad guy. There's no Rob doesn't really want to kill people anymore. He kind of just does. He doesn't want to, and he still does make a distinction between himself, and the writing makes a distinction between himself and like people like Roxy. Same thing with Chuck. Although we focus a lot less on Chuck, we more focus on his relationship with another character in the book when we are with him in the narration. But Rob, we focus a lot on, but he's more turned to the dark side, so there's a lot less ability to contrast characters So it's a lot more just evil across the board, which means there's less. So they all kind of blend together into one killer almost. Not fully, not to the point where it's detrimental to the book, but just they kind of all act the same. They kind of all carry out insane acts of murder, mass murder. So it's less centered around like character traits and how they behave and stuff like that. There still is some of that. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not. There absolutely is violent behavior that these characters portray that is specific to their character and who they are and why they are that way. Notably with Emily and Julie, sorry, not Julia, Julie. Um, there are very specific scenes where they act in tune, I guess, with their character, but it is much more one killer across the board carrying out, wow, voice crack, many scenes of insane violence that all kind of mimic each other or mirror each other. So at the end of these general review sections from now on, I am going to be doing a thing where I will be giving you a series of ratings that rate different aspects of the book. So things like character development, prose, plot, direction, and then I will be also rating the how gross the book was, how disturbing the book was out of 10. And yeah, that's pretty much all the explanation you need, so we're going to get right into it. This first series of numbers is out of 10, where 5 is completely normal. Not good, not bad, completely unassuming, nothing special. Nothing special in a bad way, nothing special in a good way. Okay? Just going to get that out of the way. First thing is going to be the plot and the plot direction. In this book, I would give that a 6 out of 10. For the tone, would also give that a 6 out of 10. It felt very well written in certain points. It wasn't like anything super special, but it was very well written. There wasn't any like tonal whiplash or things. Nothing felt out of place, and it felt better than normal. Okay, it was good. Grammar and typos, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10 because there were a couple. You can't really get like a 10 on that. The best you can get is a 5, so 4 out of 10. Characters and character development, I will give a 7. Now, I did talk some shit about the characters feeling a little flatter than in the first book, but they still feel very well-rounded, a lot less development aside from kind of Rob in this one, but it still feels they feel like real people for the most part. Again, some dialogue issues, stuff like that, but overall felt very good. Now, as for the dialogue, I'm going to give that a 5 because there were a couple of scenes that drag it down, and then there were a couple of scenes where the dialogue seemed very real. There were a few scenes where the dialogue seemed very real, but I'm going to kind of cancel it all out and just give it a 5, okay? Dialogue between the characters, 5. You have your prose, so the general way that everything is written and composed and the words and everything, I would give that a 5. Prose felt very normal. Nothing special, nothing McCarthy-esque, nothing low-tier fan fiction quality. So it's very in the middle, nothing to write home about, but very consistent, very decent. Personal enjoyment, I'd give it a 7. I really fucking enjoyed this book, if I'm honest. It was fun. It was interesting. I did not like it as much as the first one, but it was very good, okay? I would highly recommend you pick up a copy of this book and read it, either digitally or physically. Digital copies are going to be cheaper. If you can't afford a physical copy and you want to read it, pick up a digital copy. Now, the next series of numbers, next 2 numbers, are out of 10, where 0 is completely normal, okay? Completely unassuming. The first number I'm going to give you is for the disturbing factor. How disturbing was the book? I would give it a 5 out of 10. So again, 0 is completely normal, not disturbing. This book I'm giving a 5 out of 10 on the disturbing factor. It is very disturbing in certain scenes. It is very gruesome in certain scenes, okay? It is not for the faint-hearted, I will tell you that. As for the gross out factor, I will give this book a 1 out of 10. Now, neither of these numbers speak to the quality, so a lower number is not something to be upset about. You don't need your extreme horror to be extremely gross. You don't necessarily need parts of your extreme horror to be extremely disturbing. So I'm not saying that the book is bad for it, but there isn't a lot of gross out in this book. It's just how it is. Again, not a negative, just how it is. There's one scene, there's actually 1 or 2 scenes that are kind of gross. 3 or 4 scenes that are kind of gross, but the book is very, very long, and there's a lot of material in it. So 3 or 4 kind of gross scenes, shit-eating, stump fucking, shoving a pole up a man's ass and flaying his genitals. you know, doesn't really muddy the water enough for me to give it a higher gross out rating when the book is 400 pages or whatever I said it was in the beginning. I've already forgotten. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it for that rating. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say for uh my pre-summary review. I would now like to share with you some scenes and excerpts. Light spoiler warning, I'm going to tell you a scene in the book now. It is a disturbing scene. It's not really going to make sense in the context of the world without other knowledge, but light spoilers. So Roxy and Rob, in the book, at a certain point, enter a Mormon youth center, and then they gun down everyone present using military-grade weaponry, AK-47s. So, like I said, completely fucking insane. They pick them off in a gym one by one, and then they walk out of the building and get into a gunfight with the cops, GTA style. It's absolutely fucking crazy. It's insane, and there are multiple different scenes like this throughout the book. It is fucking it's nuts. It's fucking nuts. It's again much different than the first book. That's not a bad thing, just is. And it's fucking insane. It's fucking insane. And yeah, I mean that's the only notable scene that I wrote down. So we are going to jump from light spoilers into heavy spoilers now. This is going to be a plot summary. I am going to tell you a very dumbed down version of everything that happens in the book. Again, as always, if you were to read the book, you would have a very different time. You would discover a lot of things that I didn't tell you on purpose. I have changed the order of some details to better explain to you what happens, but so some of these things are not chronological in terms of the book. So again, read the book. You will have a very different experience. I would highly recommend you read the book. This is your last warning to click off of the video now. Heavy spoiler warning. Okay, so in the beginning of the book, Rob from the first book gets out of jail. He begins living with a woman who he was corresponding with in jail, named Jane, who is obsessed with being like Roxy to the point where she dresses like her and has started getting tattoos like her. She's extremely abusive to Rob and eventually goads him into helping her kidnap and kill a random woman. Again, Rob is just kind of along for the ride. In this book, he literally pretty much states he would rather go along with this crazy torture murder plan with Jane than end up in a homeless shelter. So, there's not really much sympathy you can give him. She blah 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 blah. Rob then has to kill this random woman so that they don't get found out by the police. Again, he doesn't have to. He chooses to. He chooses to murder this woman and then justifies it by saying that he has to. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Roxy is working on getting the Myrtle Beach crew back together, which includes Emily, or the survivors, Emily, Julie, Chuck, Rob, and herself. So, Chuck currently is locked in Emily's basement after he drunkenly tried to essentially attack her by going to her house. So all of that soul searching and like finding himself he did at the end of the first book, where I argued that the good guys almost won because of what his outcome was. That's all gone by the wayside. So yeah, he's a drunkard. He's kind of lost himself because of his trauma. But now he's locked in Emily's basement and being tortured. He lost his feet, etc., etc. Emily, who has gotten off scot-free from her charges, is currently in cahoots with a billionaire named Warren Everett, who is a fan of hers and who is consistently trying to marry her. Julie has made a lot of money off of her fame and is living a very lavish life, but she yearns for murder, essentially. Roxy assembles Julie and Emily, and then they then concoct a plan for a killing game at the behest of Roxy. Rob, meanwhile, tries to kill Jane due to the abuse that he sustained, and while chasing her out of the apartment, he murders 2 random civilians in a fit of rage, at which point Roxy's crew kidnap him and Jane, and then they are all taken to a warehouse, including Chuck. They're all assembled in a warehouse, at which point the billionaire arrives and explains the game. They will be split into teams of 2 and will be assigned missions, which will involve killing many people. They will be followed by an observer with a camera, and their videos will be uploaded to a secure network and will be judged by a panel of freaks, Julie's fans and the billionaire's friends, essentially. The winner will receive a private island and will not want for anything. Notably, there's no rule about like the killers or the losers being killed. Chuck is forced into the game by essentially having his family threatened, um, and he's the only one that's forced into the game. Everyone else is voluntold, and then they volunteer. But there's no rule where like if they lose, they'll die. It's just more of a ego thing. So the teams end up being Roxy and Rob, Jane and Chuck, Emily and Julia. Julia. Why do I keep wanting to say Julia? Julie. Um, Notably, Roxy had Jane tortured before the game began, simply because she was dating Rob, and then Roxy forgives Rob for his cheating on her, how she phrases it, and then they get back together almost immediately. The game then begins. As they travel across the country in a party bus, Jane and Chuck horrifically torture a worker from a homeless shelter. Emily and Julie commit mass murders in a burger joint and an old person's home. Roxy and Rob torture and kill a group of kids, shoot up a Mormon youth group, and murder a teacher. So, eventually their antics put them all in danger, and the billionaire forces them into a compound for a few months. Around this point, Roxy nearly beats Jane to death for throwing a bottle at her head. The billionaire, having seen the mistreatment that Jane and then later Chuck go through at the hands of the killers, vows that Jane and Chuck will be the winners. He will declare them the winners, and to do so, he will kill the other four because he's pissed off that they nearly got him caught. Mostly it's Roxy's fault because she went almost kind of against the game rules and shot up the Mormon youth group, which was supposed to be Jane and Chuck's mission. And then they killed a bunch of cops, Emily and Julie and Roxy and Rob killed a bunch of cops and made international news. The billionaire almost got caught. He's really angry, so he's going to have all of them killed and then declare Jane and Chuck the winners. By the way, Jane and Chuck are getting closer and closer. They're becoming like boyfriend and girlfriend, that kind of thing. So the billionaire manages to trap Emily and Julie in a house after they slaughter an entire family, thinking that they are still playing the game. The cops arrive. Julie manages to escape, but Emily is killed by the police. Roxy and Rob, on their final mission, figure out that something is awry with how the observer is acting, and they end up killing him, and then through chance finding out that Everett is wherever it is, the billionaire, along with where Jane and Chuck are. They then concoct a plan to go and murder him, at which point, at pretty much Rob's behest, they murder a random movie star across the street from where they are. So this is like, Rob is now fully on the dark side, right? He essentially pushes Roxy to kill this random guy, and they behead him and then present his head to the billionaire when they get there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. They track down the billionaire, Roxy and Rob, and then they kill him, his bodyguards, Jane and Chuck. Also notably, aside from showing him the decapitated head, because there was like a whole thing of like, if you kill an A-list celebrity while playing this version of this part of the game, I'll give you a shit ton of money or something. So this is just like spitting in his face, essentially showing him that they're like the best in the game. Rob, again, notably, taunts the billionaire by doing like this across his neck and smiling like a maniac. So he is like fully fucking insane at this point. We've gone throughout the book. He starts committing more and more atrocities because Roxy wants him to. And then he's just fully nuts. He just is absolutely fucking insane. Just like Roxy, or almost like Roxy. So after they kill the billionaire, Jane, Chuck, all of them, they drive to the Grand Canyon to spend a day there, and Rob makes a comment about how it's just as beautiful, or Roxy's more beautiful than the Grand Canyon, and then she pushes him in, and that's when the book ends. She realizes that she can't live on the road with Rob. He would be happier by himself or dead, and that she made the choice to break up with him a while back, but she doesn't want to just break up with him because she'll feel distraught, so she thinks the better option is to just kill him. So, some final review stuff. It is rather interesting to see Rob's transformation. I was just talking about this, but seeing him as he goes from, at the beginning of the book, almost like he was in the first book, where he really doesn't want to get involved in the murder, to killing a woman because he has to killing multiple people and torturing some of them when Roxy requests him to, and then to egging Roxy on to murder a random movie star that he doesn't like, and then taunting the billionaire before they shoot him to death, and Jane and Chuck, which Rob seems completely on board with and actually happy about. It is rather interesting to see his character go from this to this. Now, again, not a lot of character development aside from that throughout the book that's as decent. I mean, obviously the characters aren't like static throughout the book or anything, but it's not even remotely in the same ballgame as the first book. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just much more toned down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. I always respond to comments. I enjoy comments. Shout out to this guy who inspired me to do the little rating system that I'm now going to implement in all of my future videos. They inspired me to do this because they asked for a number rating for, I want to say, Endless Night, and I figured that was a good idea to implement in all of my videos. So I'm going to be doing that from now on. So shout out to you. Don't know how much my shout out means, but yeah. As always, my opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. I would highly recommend you form your own opinions. Pick up a copy of the book. I've said it already in the video. Read it. It's very good. Not as good as the first one. Very, very different. You might like it more than I did. Okay? You might like it more than the first one, depending on your interests. If you're more into the zany action shit, you're going to like this more than the first one, I'd almost guarantee you. So pick up a copy of it. Read it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Let me know if you disagree with any of my opinions, if you think anything I said was incorrect, if you think I read anything incorrectly and misinterpreted something, please let me know. I'd always appreciate that. If you dislike the video, but also tell me why you dislike the video so that I can improve. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.